And he said, you know what I determined? He said, maybe there's somebody out there that's not strong enough to do it. And God said, you are. I got you. You'll get through it. So maybe we took something off somebody else's plate. Hello, my name is Sizemore, and this is my testimony. Everybody basically says that, you always hear people say things like 20 whatever was the worst year ever, or 1990 whatever was the worst year ever for me or for my family. I don't know if 2023 was the worst year ever, but 2023 was definitely a difficult year for me and my family. Pretty normal starting out, but when we got to May, the world kind of started to flip a little bit. My mother-in-law, Jeannie Cox, that most everybody knows in the county, started to rusted redo. Just even before that, everybody knew her and just loved her. So many great testimonies about her. She was fighting some kidney disease, but she suddenly passed away in May. We still don't know if it's related to that or not, but we got the call. Had to head down to the hospital, went down there assuming it was just her blood pressure was high. We was gonna go down there, go get her fixed up and go home the next day. And when we walked in the door, I went back to find her, and the next thing I see is, her husband, Courtney's stepdad, and her brother coming my way, and their world was rocked. And from there, the next 2 days were pretty rough, pretty awful. And then a couple days later, we had to let her go. So that kind of started, a little bit of whirlwind in our life. We're grieving, but then we just kind of go back to life too, and that's hard. Is that the right way to do it? I don't know. I don't think there's any right way to grieve, but we kind of decided we're just going to go back at it. And people were very supportive. And then you go back to your normal life, work, kids stuff, other obligations, and some of the other obligations we had to kind of wade through some muddy waters. People kind of started losing a little grace. And they didn't care where you sat. They were worried about themselves. And I don't mean to be mean about it. It's just what happens. We're wading through that, doing our very best I can to help out and do what we're supposed to do. And then come the end of summer. A couple of days I was sick. Just didn't feel great. Got up on a Wednesday morning and I'm like, that's swollen right there. That was weird. And my ear stopped up. Can't hear out of it. Can't get it to pop. So I go to a walk-in clinic, assuming I got a sinus infection or whatever. And they treated me for a sinus infection. That Saturday, after that Wednesday, I ran a fever. And stuff just wasn't getting better. Which I think in turn was a blessing in disguise. Because I think I was really sick, along with what I was about to find out. I think the sickness helped me get me to the doctor sooner, because if I didn't have the sickness, maybe I wouldn't have went as quick. So maybe it was a blessing. That's the way I look at it. Not any better. Went to my family care doctor, my family normal doctor on Monday. He said, we need to do some scans. You may have an abscess or something going on back here. Okay. Got in, got a scan done, come back and says, looks like you got an abscess. We need to get you an ENT pretty quick. Okay. Next day, got me an ENT. Great guy. Dr. Horton was fantastic. I get into him. Runs this big tube down your nose. Fun times, My wife's sitting over there about to pass out watching. And he pulls the tube out and his face is totally different. So I know right there something's going on. And his next words says, Mr. Sizemore, I'm very concerned about you. I don't know much what he said after that. We were kind of days after that, and he just started talking, explaining stuff, and said we need to get in for some biopsies just to see what we're dealing with and before we make any speculation. So he was fantastic, got us in with some great groups to do a biopsy here. When we pulled that biopsy, well, before that, we go home that night, just processing, the what ifs, knowing it's probably something. Cried, laughed, cried some more, and then we got up the next morning and said, okay, well, whatever it is, we got to do it. So whatever days later, we done the needle biopsy, come back, yeah, it's a form of cancer. So then they've got to do another biopsy, surgical biopsy, to make sure the tumor that they see back there is the same as this. Make sure we're not dealing with two different kinds or whatever. So does that, had to do a couple biopsies because he missed it the first time. And when we got done, he said, we're gonna hope it comes back P16 positive as a marker. So if it does, it's still cancer, but it's a lot more treatable, and chemo does a much better job on it, much more susceptible to the chemo. So, you know, me being technology guy, I go on my portal, I'm checking my portal before I even go back to the doctor. And the first bit of good news was when I read that report, P16 positive. So bad news is cancer, good news is it's a much treatable kind. So from there, you know, he reviewed what I'd already read and all that, and he said, well, I've got to turn you over to an oncologist and a radiologist from here. Okay. He said, where you want me to set you up at? I said, where are you going? I said, I don't know where you're going. He said, I'm going to UT. I said, set me up, that's where I'm going. And he got me set up with Dr. Hannah at UT, fantastic, amazing man. A million great stories I've heard about him. And Dr. Brett is my radiologist, and he's just the most kind, caring man, and his office is the same way. So if you got to deal with it, let's deal with good people. So thus we start the process. And you know, so right now I feel good. During that time I feel good. You know, whatever cold's passed, I feel good. You know, it's most of the time with cancer, it's not the cancer unless it's the final stages. It's the treatment that gets you. That's what really hits you hard. So we get that started. They're going to do 3 heavy rounds of chemo and then radiation with a light chemo. The 3 rounds is every 3 weeks. I go in on Monday, basically all day, fluids, medicine, 2 heavy chemos, and then they send me home with a fun pump that gives chemo all week. So that was new. I'd never really heard of that. I heard chemo pills, but I never heard of the pump. So till Friday, I had to go back and take the pump off. They give me up this patch that helped jumpstart my system, get my blood counts back up and all that. First 2 rounds went pretty good. I did run a fever one time. They panicked, wanted me to come to the hospital. It was nothing. It was just me. I run a fever a little bit with chemo. It's fine. The 3rd round, I thought I'd done really good. I thought, we got this 3rd round done. Got to Saturday, so I got my patch put on, got that pump took off, felt pretty normal. Got up Saturday night about 8, 9 o'clock. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I was like, I might just go to bed. I'm tired. Got around the back of the couch. Started getting dizzy. My wife saw I was weird, and she come back and luckily caught me, and I passed out. So motion seems like I was having a seizure. Thank goodness after all the tests it was not seizures at all, but that was a scary night. I scared my wife and the kids absolutely to death. I'm waking up, getting sick, you know, all that. One time I remember I was like, why is my sister-in-law smacking me? And she was just smacking me to make sure I was staying awake. And I'm like, but I had family that come over there, took me by ambulance. They gave me some kind of medicine. It knocked me on my butt. I barely remember driving in the ambulance because they thought it was seizures and they just didn't want it to continue or whatever. Turns out it was severe dehydration. So I hadn't done good that week either. So I hadn't drunk well and all that. Ended up spending a week in the hospital, doing lots of tests. A blessing that came out of it is within a week or 2 after that, I was supposed to go do an MRI. So they want to do an MRI just as part of the neuro testing. I said, well, can you do all this at the same time? So my doctors agreed, and it come back on those tests from that MRI. My lymph node, which was swollen, was now returned to normal, and the tumor itself had like greatly decreased. And when my oncologist come in to see me at the hospital, I was so glad to see him because he just had this happiness about him that the treatment was working. Even though I was in the hospital, but we found out the treatment was really, maybe even doing it better than what we expected. So that was great. Another thing that I really wanted to share that I think is really important in this message is this. I can't tell you how many people reach out. What can we do for you? What do you need? We're praying for you. How can we help you? And all those are important. And I told people, prayer is the most important thing. We were pretty well covered on everything, and my work was great, and I had all the time in the world, so I was good. And I know I had that army of people that was praying, but also this army of people that pick up the phone and they'd come. They'd come. But along with that, there's those that just do. And that don't make them any better because they did. But while we're in the hospital, my wife looked at her phone. She said, I just got $25 Venmo to me. And it said, here's your lunch money. Somebody else sent money and said, here's you some gas money. I had one guy that I talked to one time, a buddy of mine, but I talked to him once or twice about my sickness, but not much. All of a sudden she looks one day, she's like, we just got $100. And I don't want to mention names because I'll leave people out. And I don't want to do that because everybody has been so important to us. Just send $100. Here, I know how it is to be in the hospital. Take this. And we had some family that just come up and said, and gave a check and said, here, and it was substantial. Like it was substantial. And didn't have to, didn't desperately need it at the moment, but they did. And the message that I teach to my kids, I coach girls basketball and travel basketball. I coach them and I teach them this. If somebody's on your heart, you just randomly, somebody comes to your mind, they're there for a reason. And even more, if God puts that impression on you that, he says, hey, go talk to this person. Or, hey, won't you pick up lunch for this person? It's there for a reason. Because most of the time, when people would come to me, how you doing? I would tell them what's going on with treatment. I didn't tell them the dark side of it. It's always, I'm not bad. I'm doing pretty good. But then there's this hard, dark side of it that, your family, your immediate family in the household is amazing. But after a while, they're tired too. I mean, your caretakers. My wife's having to be the wife and the husband because I'm starting to not be able to do things. Those people, when they step up and they send you that message, they make that phone call or they bring that food by. I think it was Christmas time. I think it was your brother. We hear somebody knocking on the door and it's his kids and they're just bringing little cookies. I couldn't eat them because they taste terrible to me, but I think I cried when they brought them, just because they just did. They just did, right? And that's the message that I want people to know, that there's so many people that's battling through this. I got one guy, once I got the heart of this, every single day without fail. While we're sitting here, I got his message. He varies it, sends me a message every single day, checking on me, encouraging me. And I look forward to that because I know it's coming. And there's been many nights where it's in the hospital or at home or late at night that message or that call or whatever it is, like that gets you through. Those things get you through. And it really does take, we can't do this. I don't care if you're just navigating through normal life and it's just all going good. We can't do it on our own. Now I realize I can't. And all those people still are helping me get through my journey. So if I had part of the message to leave, that's it. If you can help somebody or if they're on your mind, reach out to them. It might be just the encouragement they need right then to get them over the hump. So we got out of the hospital, all was good, no seizure problems. We ventured into radiation, and radiation it's probably bad anywhere. It's probably but where mine's up here, it affects your throat and it does all that stuff. And I eventually get to a point in time, I gotta go 7 weeks of this along with chemo once a week too. You get to the point in time where you can't eat, everything's swollen, it's all bad. I'm living off these little shakes, and they're just terrible. They don't taste good because my taste is all screwed up. It hurts. Some medicine helps with that, but they call it magic mouthwash. It is not magic. It helps, but it is not magic. Some stuff just irritates it. It's not just hurts, it burns. So we found these shakes. They're like 500 and some calories each, and I'm living off them. You know what? Thank goodness I'm keeping my calories up, and I'm dropping weight. I've dropped weight, but not like could have. Still doing those a day while we're recovering. But one thing I learned too is, and I think this is important for people to know, I think it's really important to know, when you go through all this, doctors can do a great job and tell you, well, it's going to take this many weeks, and we're going to do this, and we'll do these scans, and at this point in time, and they laid out, at this point in time, your throat's going to start doing this, at this point in time, you're probably going to start to feel like you got a sunburn. They can give you all these timelines, and then they can tell you when you're done. They can give you a timeline, and they do a great job. But what they don't tell you is the mental side. And I'm pretty tough mentally, I think. But it's, between chemo kind of producing this fog in your head, and then just, I sat there sometimes, I would take my little shake, I have so many I got today, I'd set it on my table there, and I would look at it, and I'd look back. 30 minutes, it's still there. An hour, it's still there. Hour and a half, because I knew physically it was going to hurt or burn or whatever, but I knew physically I could get it down. But mentally, and it didn't matter how many times somebody told me, you got to. And my only thing I could tell them was, I know I got to. I know. I'm smart. I'm halfway intelligent. But I just couldn't. There's nights that I was up at 1 o'clock still trying to get my last shake down. I'd get it down, by golly, but it was at 1 o'clock. So that's why I say, maybe at midnight, somebody's on your mind, maybe they're sitting there struggling, and they need that encouragement from somewhere else. So, we made it through all that. By all the people, the army of people around me, my wonderful family, especially my wife, and God's grace, we made it through all those. The last couple weeks of radiation become very tough to do, but I go into my radiation therapist, and they just, so one of the things that I told you earlier is they make it very human. You're not churn out patient number 111, you're very human. Hey Chris, how you doing? Looks like you're, they're honest with you. Looks like maybe you're struggling a little bit today. Yeah. And, they make it very human. And they made the whole process better. Didn't make it good. The process still was bad, but they made it better. So that was that. And I got to stop in the other day and talk to them, a couple of them, and just tell them thank you again. We wrapped up treatment about 6 weeks ago. Don't go back for any kind of scans until May because it takes about 90 days to heal. So we're still going through that process, and we still appreciate all our prayer warriors doing what they're doing. That's the biggest thing. We'll get there. My testimony and my story, I think, kind of sums up into my goals. Kind of as I went through this, I determined I had 3 goals. And it's kind of, again, today it's kind of my testimony. It's kind of my story. My first goal, because I'm human, I'm not going to lie. It's not like I will tell God, oh God, and then try to be holier than that. I won't be real. My first goal was to get better. My first goal was to wipe this crap out and it'd be gone. That's my first goal. I used the airplane theory with that. I've said this many times, but I have a chance to share it here. It's my airplane theory. First time I got on an airplane, they go through the safety stuff and they tell you in the event of cabin pressure loss, oxygen mask, put it on you first. And I always thought, man, that's the most selfish thing I've heard, because my kids here, I want to make sure they're took care of. But then I realized, if you're not okay and you're not in a place to help, you're no good. So I use that the same as like, God, help me so I can be better. My second one was, we've made huge advances in cancer. You know, you see the St. Jude commercials where childhood cancer was 10 or 20% cure rate, and now it's 80. A lot of cancers with a huge cure rate. Some still not very good. You know, we want it to be 100%. We want that cure rate to be 100%. Can we get there? I don't know, but by golly, I think we ought to work really daggum hard to get there. So I hope the way they treated me in my treatment, and again, am I fully cured? Won't know. It's for until about May. But I feel good about it, and I feel very promising about the steps that we've made. But I hope the way they've treated me and the things that they've done and things I've done, maybe the doctors learn just a little bit from my treatment that'll help somebody else. If it does, goal number 2, that's great. And goal number 3, and I've always kind of been like this, but I carried over this, is I hope that I can maybe be an inspiration or help somebody. Not because I done anything great. I sat around on the couch all day. You know, I made my way to UHT Hospital and sat in treatment. You know, all the people around me really did the heavy lifting, not me. But I hope that I can maybe be an inspiration. You know, my journey hopefully comes out very good, and somebody say, he did, I can do it too. And maybe I can be an inspiration. So that was my 3 goals. And that's kind of my testimony today. If I can do those things and accomplish those goals, I've done something. And kind of the last thing, because it's certainly, cancer is definitely considered a curse. I mean, there's nobody gonna say, man, I'm so glad I got cancer. But I believe there's some good things that can come out of it. There was a gentleman, an older gentleman, that was sitting in the lower room waiting to go to radiation, and he said this. He was talking to somebody else, and he said, I asked why. I started asking, why did I get cancer? Why have I got to deal with this? Why have I got to do this? And he said, you know, then I got to thinking. And he said, I got to praying about it a little bit. And he said, you know what I determined? He said, maybe there's somebody out there that's not strong enough to do it. And God said, you are. I got you. You'll get through it. So maybe we took something off somebody else's plate. But we're thankful for everybody that's done what they've done and continue to do. And just thankful that God saw us through this thing. And still on the journey. I don't think the journey will ever end. Because once you get cancer, you know, you're always got a journey through. Is it going to come back? Is something that's going to happen? So you're always going for those tests. But I tell you, I'm just looking forward to May 20th to get that scan, and hopefully thereafter see some really good news. So I appreciate everybody and appreciate what you do.